They placed the ignition between the seats, mounted the engine backward, wrapped the dashboard around the driver like a cockpit. Saab wasn't just quirky, it was decades ahead of its time. But in 2011, after more than 60 years, Saab died, not because of weak sales or bad engineering, but because of something far more ruthless, corporate greed that dismantled everything that made Saab unique. Back in 1949, Sweden stood for independence, neutrality, and innovation. Saab, Svenska Aeroplan AB, had built cutting-edge fighter planes during World War II. But with peace came a problem. What to do with all that aerospace engineering talent? The answer was bold. Build cars the same way they built aircraft. Saab 9-2 wasn't sketched by car designers. It was shaped in a wind tunnel by aerodynamicists. The result? A teardrop on wheels, with a drag coefficient lower than many modern EVs. But Saab didn't stop at looks. Where others mounted engines the usual way, Saab flipped theirs backward. Why? To put the weight over the front wheels, a smart move in snowy Sweden, straight from aviation logic. Inside, the cockpit philosophy continued. Gauges were angled toward the driver. The ignition? Placed between the seats, like the master switch in a plane, within reach of both pilot and co-pilot. These weren't eccentricities. They were purposeful innovations. Everything Saab did had a reason. They didn't follow trends, they solved problems. Like engineers, like pilots. By the 1970s, Saab had carved out a unique identity, the thinking person's car. While German automakers chased larger engines and American brands obsessed over brute horsepower, Saab focused on efficiency and smart performance. Their goal wasn't more, it was better. That mindset led to a milestone, the 1978 Saab 9-9 Turbo, the world's first mass-produced turbocharged car. But this wasn't turbocharging for the sake of novelty. Saab knew the 1970s oil crisis had reshaped the market. Drivers still wanted power, but now they also demanded fuel economy. Saab delivered both. Their secret? Deep aerospace knowledge. Saab had been turbocharging aircraft engines for decades. They already understood boost pressure, thermal management, and mechanical stress, lessons most automakers were still learning. The 99 Turbo produced sports car performance from a modest 2-liter engine, all while returning solid fuel economy. But more than numbers, it delivered a feeling. Saab turbos had a smooth surge, minimal lag, and that signature whoosh that became synonymous with the brand. By 1982, the Saab 900 Turbo had perfected the formula. According to car and driver's Brock Yates, writing in 1983, it was the most sophisticated production car in the world. It wasn't just smart, it was practical. The hatchback layout offered generous interior space. The wraparound dash added crash protection before crumple zones were even common. The aircraft-inspired heating system could warm the cabin in minutes, even in Arctic cold. And Saab had built something other brands couldn't replicate: fierce customer loyalty.
By the late 1980s, Saab wasn't just a car company, it was a cult. Owners didn't just drive Saabs, they defended them. They embraced the quirks in exchange for character, safety, and true innovation. But in 1989, that delicate balance cracked. General Motors purchased 50% of Saab Automobile, promising to preserve its independence while offering global reach and shared resources. Saab fans were cautious but hopeful. GM assured everyone, nothing will change. They lied. The damage began immediately. GM forced Saab to share platforms with other GM brands. The Saab 9000, previously co-developed with Fiat and Lancia, now had to accommodate GM engines and parts. The results felt watered down. a Saab on the outside, a compromise underneath. But the real issue ran deeper. GM didn't understand Saab. To Detroit executives, it was just another premium badge to Americanize. They saw Saab's quirks not as features, but flaws to be erased. The new Saab 9.3 proved that disconnect. Built on GM's Vera platform, it retained visual cues, but lost the soul. The ignition moved from between the seats to the steering column. Unique Saab switches were replaced with generic GM parts. A 1998 report from LMC Automotive revealed that the 9.3 retained just 23% of parts from Saab's original designs. Sales held for a while, thanks to loyalists. But conquest sales, attracting new buyers, collapsed. Why would anyone pay Saab prices for a rebadged Opel? By 2003, GM took full control of Saab, and what little identity remained started to vanish fast. After GM gained full control in 2003, Saab was no longer Saab. Platform sharing became the rule. The 9.3 now rode on GM's Epsilon platform, the same one used by the Chevrolet Malibu, Pontiac G6, and Saturn Aura. The larger 9.5 shared its underpinnings with the Cadillac CTS and SRX. This wasn't just cost-cutting, it was cultural destruction. Saab engineers, who had spent decades mastering front-wheel drive balance and turbo integration, were forced to work within GM's design limits, built for American tastes, not Swedish logic. The results were predictable. In a 2005 Road and Track comparison, the Saab 9.3 ranked dead last among premium compacts. Reviewers called it a parts bin special, stripped of the distinctiveness that once defined Saab. Motor Trend was harsher. Their review in 2006 of the 9.5 said, "It proved badge engineering can destroy even the most characterful brands." But the damage didn't end in reviews. Saab dealers, once known for selling high-tech cars to savvy buyers, now had to explain why a Saab cost more than an almost identical GM product. Customer satisfaction plummeted. J.D. Power's 2007 Vehicle Dependability Study ranked Saab 23rd out of 37 brands, trailing even Buick, Pontiac, and Chrysler. Meanwhile, the industry moved on. BMW rolled out adaptive suspension and run flats. Mercedes pushed active safety tech. Audi perfected AWD with turbo power. Saab? Left behind. GM gave them outdated tech, years behind rivals. Saab's once groundbreaking engineering was reduced to rebranded leftovers. And then came Saab's attempt to chase trends and fall flat on its face.
By 2008, Saab was no longer leading, it was copying. The 9.3X, the response to the booming crossover market, was just a slightly lifted 9.3 wagon with plastic cladding. No advanced AWD, no unique suspension, no innovation, just a desperate attempt to follow the crowd. Automotive and Sports called it out bluntly in 2009, an embarrassing attempt to chase trends without understanding them. Meanwhile, Saab's strengths were fading. Turbocharging, once their signature, had become standard across the industry, often done better by competitors. Brands like Volvo and Mercedes were now defining safety tech. Saab was no longer ahead, it was irrelevant. Then, the 2008 global financial crisis hit, and GM crumbled. With bankruptcy looming, Saab became an easy cut. Sales had already slipped from 133,000 units in 2003 to just 93,000 by 2008. But the real alarm was in Sweden. In their home market, Saab's share had dropped from 11.2% in 1995 to just 3.1% by 2008. Swedish buyers, the ones who understood Saab best, were walking away. The message was clear. According to a 2009 analysis by Jado Dynamics, Saab had become a brand with no clear purpose, too expensive to compete with mainstream cars, too diluted to justify premium pricing. In 2010, Dutch sports car firm Spyker bought Saab from GM for just 74 million euros, a fraction of what GM had spent trying to fix the brand. Spyker's CEO Victor Mueller painted a bold vision.
bring back Saab's independence, its fighter jet roots, and rebuild on innovation. New platforms, electric powertrains, a return to aircraft-inspired design. The 2010 Saab 9.5 hinted at that dream. Striking looks, distinctive interior, flashes of identity. But Saab needed more than vision. It needed money, and Spyker didn't have it. Spyker's annual revenue was under 30 million euros, less than what BMW spent just marketing the 3 Series in Germany. Development funds were non-existent. Saab's new crossover, the 9.4X, was nothing more than a rebadged Cadillac SRX, exactly the kind of product that had hollowed out the brand under GM. By April 2011, Saab halted production due to unpaid suppliers. The company entered reconstruction, Sweden's version of bankruptcy protection. Hopes of rescue emerged. Chinese and Russian investors circled, but none came through. The decline was sharp and public. Saab sold just 31,696 cars in 2011, down from 93,000 3 years earlier. Warranty claims piled up. Cash flow turned negative. Dealers gave up. According to Automotive News Europe, Saab's 3-year residual value dropped to 31%, the worst of any premium brand. On December 19, 2011, Saab filed for bankruptcy. A company that pioneered turbocharging, safety engineering, and aerodynamic design was gone. The Trollhättan factory, which had built over 4.5 million cars since 1949, shut down. But Saab didn't die from poor design or slow adaptation. It died because everything that made it great was systematically removed.
Saab wasn't killed by market forces. It was corporate murder. GM didn't just neglect Saab, it dismantled it piece by piece, misunderstanding its identity at every step. Saab owners paid a premium for character, innovation, and engineering depth. GM gave them rebadged Opals with quirky styling. The cost-cutting and platform sharing may have made financial sense on paper, but it erased the soul of the brand. Generations of Saab knowledge in front-wheel drive dynamics, turbo tuning, and ergonomic design were thrown out in favor of GM standard parts and processes. In 2012, former Saab chief engineer Gunnar Lohn told Automotive Engineering, "GM never understood that our inefficiencies were actually our competitive advantages." The numbers underline the point. While BMW invested $2.8 billion developing the F33 series, Saab's entire annual R&D budget under GM never exceeded $200 million. Saab's downfall offers brutal lessons. Authenticity can't be faked. Customers know when a brand's essence disappears. Platform sharing requires surgical precision. It should cut costs, not identity. Innovation needs real investment. You can't live off past reputation. Worst of all, Saab's strengths, aerodynamic design, thermal control, and system integration became more relevant as the industry shifted to EVs. Saab could have thrived in this new era. Instead, Tesla launched the Model S in 2012, applying many of the same principles Saab once championed. Saab should have been part of that future. Instead, it was already buried.
Today, Saab exists only in fragments. National Electric Vehicle Sweden owns the rights to the Saab 9.3 and builds a handful of electric cars for the Chinese market. They wear Saab badges, but carry none of the brand's spirit. Talks of revival continue. In 2023, rumors surfaced about a new Saab EV with autonomous driving. But without the engineers, the community, or the identity that once defined Saab, these attempts feel like necromancy, not resurrection. Saab's death sent shockwaves through the industry. It proved something chilling. Even a beloved, innovative brand can be destroyed by bad management. Other manufacturers learned. When Geely acquired Volvo in 2010, they explicitly committed to preserving its Swedish identity and autonomy, a direct response to what happened with Saab. Meanwhile, the few remaining Saabs have become modern artifacts. Well-kept 900s and early 9000s fetch premium prices. The final Gen 9.5 is now seen as an underrated gem. Independent specialists keep the surviving cars running, not just as transportation, but as symbols of what was lost.
Because Saab didn't fail for lack of customers. It failed because its essence was stripped away. The quirks, the design logic, the engineering soul, everything that once made it Saab. GM's mismanagement became a case study in what not to do. They tried to fit Saab into a mold it never belonged in. In doing so, they didn't just kill a car brand. They killed the idea that a car could be bold, strange, and brilliant and still succeed. And that may be the greatest loss of all.